Welcome back, my beautiful teenagers. Today I'm going to tell you a story time about a 20-year-old man I was involved with when I was 16 years old. And looking back, there were so many red flags, and I really want to tell this story because, as much advice as I can give on the dangers and how to protect yourself and survive in high school, it's not until you hear a real story time from my real personal experience that you can kind of see the parallels in your own life. So let's get into this. So looking back, like I said, the red flags were everywhere. At the time, I thought he liked me. I thought I was mature. I thought I knew what I was doing. Now that I'm older, I realize there were a lot of things about that situation that was disgusting and strange. And if I could go back and talk to 16-year-old me, I would tell her to fucking run. So it started off with a text message. I was 16 years old and I had a job. I lived in the suburbs. I was living a pretty normal high school life. Most of my friends had a lot of money, so they were driving like nice whips and all types of stuff. And my only goal at that time was to get a car and get some braces, right? So one day I got a text from this older guy that I knew from school. So when I was a freshman, he was a senior, and at this point he had already graduated. So I knew of him, and I wasn't scared or anything because he was obviously watching me from a distance all these years, right? So he asked me if I needed a ride home from work, and I had said yes, simple, nothing crazy. It was late at night. I actually did need a ride home from work, and I didn't think anything of it. So we started talking every day, texting, hanging out. He would pick me up to run like errands. Like I remember one time being at school and he was like, "Hey, like, can you come with me to the car dealership?" And I would go with him. I remember going with him, or like he would just always be like, "Hey, like, do you want to come ride?" And when you're 16 years old, of course you just want to get out the house or get out of school, right? And I feel like, to give you guys some context, this guy was like 6'7" and drove a black Corvette, or like a sports car. So I was totally down. Like I was like, oh my god, he's so cool. Like this older guy is into me. He's 6'7". Like I thought I won the lottery, right? And looking back, I think I was just in a very vulnerable place, and I didn't have a father figure who gave a fuck about me enough to protect me from these situations. And my dad had me in a big house. I was in the suburbs. Like I was living a good life, but I never had a father to sit me down and protect me and tell me he loved me and treat me like the lady that I was, right? So I got very attached to him very quickly. And I'll be honest, like from like getting into high school up until I was about 18, I would get very attached to boys very quickly. I was not male-centered, to make that very clear. I was not male-centered at all, but when I did have a boyfriend, I would get very attached, and I would my whole feelings would be involved. So the first red flag was the age gap. I was 16 turning 17, and he was, I believe, either 20 turning 21 or 21 turning 22. Regardless, he was too old for me. But when you're 16, when you're a teenager, you don't see it that way. Especially if you grew up in the suburbs, you already know you're put on this pedestal to be mature, to handle your business, and your parents trust you, right? So I genuinely thought I was older than I was. Something about him always felt off. One thing I remember about him was that he barely talked. He would just watch me, and I used to think it was cute. I thought it was so mysterious, but looking back, he was studying me. He was trying to see how to get in, and that is what manipulative people do. They don't talk. They're very, very quiet, right? And some people are just, they're not talkers, but whenever I would ask him, like, oh, why don't you talk? Like, what's, he would just be like, oh, I'm nonchalant. Let me tell you girls something. No boy who likes you is going to be nonchalant. Let's just make that very clear. But because I had such little fucking life experience, and like I said, it was my first time ever really talking to guys, I didn't know that. My mom, my dad never sat me down and gave me a playbook on how to deal with boys. They kind of just let me figure it out and bump my head, right? So the part that makes me uncomfortable now is how much he spent around high school students. So the reason that I was so comfortable with this guy in the first place was he was always at basketball games, school events. he was always around teenagers. And looking back, it's like, why the fuck are you around high school? Why are you, like, why is no one saying anything? But to make this very clear, in the suburbs, a lot of students are left very unprotected because how mature they're projected to be. So everything was cool. He would pick me up. He would hang out. And this was like the bare minimum. Like, he wasn't doing anything for me, right? I was just along for the ride. Like, looking back, I was just a fucking kid in the car with a grown-ass man. Like, that's basically what happened. So I remember introducing him to my mom. And this should have been a red flag. But like I said, my parents were very strange. They never really gave me the tools I needed to protect myself. So I remember he wanted to take me out. And he ended up coming in my house, and my mom and my stepdad were like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, what? Who are you? How old are you? And it was obviously a very strange interaction, but my mom didn't sit me aside and be like, hey, he's too old, this is not appropriate, or I don't think he wants to be with you for the right attentions. They let me go. Mind you, I'm like 16, turning 17, right? Strange, right? So we're hanging out, whatever. And I remember one day we ended up going to his sister's basketball game. His sister was in middle school and I was in high school. And his sister was cool, but she always gave me a funny look, like she knew the situation was weird, but she didn't say anything. And I remember he looked at me out of nowhere and he was like, my sister is smarter than you. And I remember just like sitting there stunned because, first of all, I was a very, very smart girl. But I was like, why would he say that? I didn't think anything of it. It definitely triggered me, but I was a young girl. I was literally a kid. I didn't know anything. So I just went with it. And what he was trying to say is, you're dumb for being around me because I'm just using you. I'm older than you and you're fucking dumb because how can't you see? So that's pretty much what he was saying when he said my sister is smarter than you, right? So we talked for a couple months, hung out, spent time together, and then one day we ended up having sex, right? And I don't want to trigger anyone, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I remember how it felt. It was so strange. Like, he literally was like, turn around. And I was like, okay. And then like we did our thing. And like, that's kind of how it went every time. And I thought it was so, I was flattered, like as a young girl, and it disgusts me how flattered I was, and it breaks my heart for my younger self, how unprotected I was, and that this guy was literally using me for sex. And then the weird part about it was that like my homeboys were his friends, so I was in this weird position where like from the outside looking in, everyone around me enabled this grown-ass man being with me. So one day he just stopped texting me, disappeared, and I remember being very distraught. Some can say I was heartbroken, but now that I know how to understand my emotions, I was distraught. I mean, imagine being 16, 17, you're dealing with an older guy, you're having sex, and then he pretty much just disappears. I was distraught. I didn't know what to do. I remember telling my friends about it. They were upset for me, but we were all kids. It was normal. Like, it wasn't like a big deal. And I was just, I remember a piece of me literally breaking off. Like, I was a very bright girl. I was a very, I was a star as a child, as a teenager. And I remember for the first time feeling darkness. And at the time, I didn't have the words for it, but I definitely feel like it chipped away at my confidence because he ghosted me. No text, no call. I remember blowing up his phone, texting him, calling him, freaking out. I didn't know what had happened. I had never experienced nothing like that. And I want to tell you guys what that is. First of all, that's emotional abuse. If anyone ghosts you, that is emotional abuse. That was definitely sexual assault because he was a grown man and I was a teenager. But I remember asking myself, like, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do? I remember I was on his phone begging him to tell me, like, what did I do wrong? And it was so sinister and it was so dark. And I'll never forget that situation because I was a 20-year-old pursuing a teenager in the first place. I remember asking myself, like, why didn't my parents step in? Why didn't my friends step in? Why was I left so unprotected and vulnerable? And I want the lesson from the situation isn't don't trust anyone, but the lesson is be very aware of where you are in your social circle. Do you have parents who are overprotective? Do you have parents who are teaching you things? If be aware, like, what does your friendship circle look like? Take a step back for a second and really be vigilant. And also, there's nothing flattering about a grown ass man in your phone. But the problem with being a teenager is like a lot of teenagers, I was one of them, you don't have positive male figures in your life. And even if you do, it's not enough. Your dad is not enough. Your mom is not enough to be that positive figure in your life. So you're going to look for outlets. And, there's nothing sexy about a grown man trying to get you or having sex with you. That's disgusting. It's actually disgusting. It's some people, looking back, I was like, wow, like, he literally used me for sex, and he used me and discarded me. And I remember forgiving him and him being like, hey, can I come to your 18th birthday? Mind you, he's probably like 22, 23 at this time, at an 18th birthday. A real life predator. Predator, guys. So I want, if I can even help one girl who watches this and recognize the signs earlier than I did, I really hope so. Because, predators exist. Do not be a prey. I'm gonna do more story times on my own experiences because I went through so much as a teenager, and I was oftentimes left so unprotected and vulnerable. And I'm so glad that I moved out of my hometown and I'm successful now, and I have such a strong support system now. But I look at that past version of myself and I'm like, you didn't do anything wrong. You were simply just left unprotected and vulnerable, which most teenagers are. So if you've ever experienced anything like this, please talk about it in the comments and let's open up this discussion. Don't be afraid to like, share with your friends, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.